terminate that tab. Now that that is up and running, we have a database that we need. We essentially just need to connect our project to this Postgres database. So let's go ahead and open up Atom here. It's in our settings file where we can set this up. So here you can see this database option, and this is where we'd want to put our information. Now there's quite a few lines here, so sort of follow along with me as we're doing this. But the first thing that we want to do is we want to change this engine. So right now it's telling us that we are going to be using an SQLite 3 database, right? And that was this little sort of dinky one that it made for us, but now we want to upgrade to Postgres. So we're still going to have that Django.db.backends, but instead of SQLite 3, we are going to change that to PostgreSQL. Excellent. Make sure you have that all spelled correctly. We know that's a big issue with me. The next one is the name. So go ahead and delete what we have right now and instead replace it with a string of whatever it is that you just named your database. So in our case, we called it Django DB or Portfolio DB. So we're going to say Portfolio DB. Just like that. And if you ever need to figure out, oh, I forgot what the name of it was, you can always go back to Postgres and check out your databases there. But put that name in there. Next, we want to add a user. So put user in all caps in a string, then a colon, then another string. Make sure you always have a comma after you put in each option here. But this is the username, which is just Postgres. Okay. Again, as your project gets bigger and bigger, you're going to want to make a different user than just the Postgres user with certain permissions and all that, but we can just leave that for now. We want to set the password, remember all caps, colon, and let's put our password into this string. So for us, that was Django1234. Okay. And then next, we want to say where it is that we can find this database. So we're going to say all caps host, colon, and then specify where it's going to be. Now it's going to be running on our own machine. So this is where you could do like the 127.0.0.1, or I like to do it as just all lowercase local host. Okay. Now the last thing that we need to do is set up what port it's going to be running on. And if you go ahead and open up Postgres here, server settings, it should be showing you, yes, it's on port 5432. So I kind of wanted to show you where this came from so you don't think I'm just pulling this random number out of anywhere, but that's what we're looking for, this 4532. And look at that, we've got our portfolio database here up and running, so that's pretty cool to see that. But again, that was 4532. Let me just confirm, yes, 4532. So we're going to say here port, and then we are going to say colon 4532. Excellent. Okay, so now that we have all of this in place, this is essentially telling our Django project when you are creating a database, when you are updating a database, look to this location rather than the SQLite 3 database that we had before. So I'm going to save this file. I'm going to go ahead. You can see we're having all sorts of issues here already, but I'm going to close running the server, and I'm going to do my Python manage.py run server. The first thing that you'll see is we're going to have to install something here, and that's this air loading scikobg2. Basically, this is a pip module that will allow us to work with Postgres inside of our project. So what we need to do is just copy this name, scikobg2. I'm sure that's not how the people developing that wanted me to say it, but make sure you're still in your virtual environment. We're just going to do pip install and then paste that name. Okay, that's going to go through and do its thing. Great. So now let's try running the server one more time. You'll notice we do get a little bit of a weird error here, and that's it's saying that you know, there's a new version coming out and you might have some issues. So it's saying you should do this pip install scikobg2-binary. If you see this message or not, it will depend on when you're watching this and what happens with this project in the future. But if you're the same like me, you'll just want to, you can still live like that, but you're going to want to do Control-C to get out first, but just install that via pip so that we can get rid of that warning sign. We should probably follow that before things break and we wonder, hey, what the heck happened there? So let's go ahead and start running that server one more time. And you'll notice now that we do this, it tells us, hey, you have 17 unapplied migrations. And you might be saying, well, we already did the migrations, like what's happening here? Well, that was when we had the db.sqlite3. In fact, if we switched our project to, instead of looking to Postgres, but instead this db.sqlite3 file, everything would be working. We wouldn't have to have any migrations. And in fact, that job that we created earlier, we would actually have access to it. You'll notice now, if while this server is running, let me make sure it's up. Let's go to our site /admin. Okay, we'll come over here. We get all sorts of errors because it says, hey, you haven't done any migrations. I can't work with this new database. And so we're going to close out of here. Remember, the way to migrate is just say python manage.py migrate. We don't have to make any migrations because we haven't added anything new. Like, there's already in our code these, migrations that we've created. So we're just going to say migrate, and boom, this is where it does all of our stuff. And now that we have this in place, let's run the server, and we'll come back to our site and go to our /admin. And you'll notice here, let's say, I try and put in my same information. So Nick, Django 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to say, hey, that doesn't work. And you're like, what? I made that super user. Well, the super user that you create lives inside of the database. So when you move to a different database, like our SQLite 3 over to Postgres, we have to create a new super user. So we're saying, okay, we're going to Control-C this, and then we're going to do our python manage.py create super user, just like that. For the name, I'm going to put Nick again. Email, not essential, but thought I'd put it there. If you ever need anything, that's me, nick@zappycode.com. Password, I'll do my classic testing one here, Django 1, 2, 3, 4, and boom, we are finished there. All right, so now that we have that in place, let's run the server one more time. Let's reload this page. Oops, let's reopen the admin. Now I'm going to do user Nick, Django 1, 2, 3, 4, enter, boom. Now we're here, this is awesome, but you'll notice if I try and go to jobs, for instance, there's nothing. And that's because we were looking at a completely separate database. And just for kind of kicks and giggles here, if you really want to see, we can pull back the other situation if we move back to the other database. So let's go to our settings file, and I'm just going to undo until we get back to what we had before. Oops, too far. Oops, and there we go. All right, so there we go. All right, so we're at a good position. Let's go ahead and reload the page here. I'm gonna have to sign back in, Nick, Django 1, 2, 3, 4. And look, there comes the job object back, right? So anyways, I just want to kind of nail this concept that whenever you have a separate database, like in the database is going to live all your model objects, all your users, authentication stuff, like it's all there. And you need to apply migrations anytime you have like a new database. Now, again, you shouldn't be moving databases all the time. Typically what I see is people start a project and, maybe they're just so itching ready to get forward. They just use the default SQLite 3. And then once they're ready to push their project up, maybe then they'll move to Postgres. But I would recommend, if you can from the start, just go ahead and start with Postgres and then move forward from there. But let's go ahead and get back to what we had before. So we'll just go ahead and watch all this hard work that we've done come back into the foreground, save that, and then we'll reload our page here. Have to relog in. Excellent. Now, one thing that I do want to mention here that's kind of a little bit scary almost is that when you move from one database to the other, not only do you lose the data inside of that database, but for example, if we go to our project, we still have this image inside of our media folder. So in fact, if we go ahead and copy the name of this, I'll do rename just so that I can copy this path. All right, so if we go to our localhost /media, we said that was our media URL, and then we paste in that images stuff, you'll see this image still appears even though there's no entry in the database necessarily connected with this. So you got to kind of be careful when you're moving from place to place, but hopefully that helps your understanding a little bit more. Now, just to really cement that we've got a good grasp on this, in the next lecture, we're going to be adding one more model to our project, and that's going to be for our blog. So we'll go ahead and do that in the next lecture.